Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. On today's episode, we're going to have another great interview with our friend, actor, director, and now California gubernatorial candidate, Patrick Kilpatrick. Patrick has appeared in over 180 major motion pictures, great films like Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Minority Report with Tom Cruise, Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, The Presidio with Sean Connery, Under Siege with Steven Seagal, and many, many other great movies. He has an interesting book out called Dying for a Living, Sins and Confessions of a Hollywood Villain and Libertine Patriot, Volume 1. And now he is also running for governor of California in the election on September 14th. So now, without any further ado, let's say hello to Patrick Kilpatrick. Hi, Patrick, and welcome to the John Ark Show. How are you today, sir?
I'm better for seeing you, John.
Oh, thank you very much. Same here.
Simultaneously writing a platform statement to be added to our press release and our platform that's being running out for the my governorship campaign in the recall election that's happening September 14th.
So let me ask you, so it's been almost a year since we've last spoken, and a lot has happened in California and throughout the rest of the country.
Yeah.
When you look out your front door, do you still feel like you're in the same country, or has it turned into the Twilight Zone? You know, based on the crime, based on the exodus of companies, based on a lot of other issues.
Well, you bring up a really great point. While I'm acutely aware that COVID was not great for an awful lot of people, and we have to mitigate the economic fallout of that, we should have dealt with that in a manner that was completely away from the way that it was dealt with here in LA County. We should have guarded our at-risk populations. We should have, as responsible citizens, kept our assembly to a minimum voluntarily, but we should not have shut down our businesses and devastated our economy by lockdowns that were arbitrary and in some cases not even followed by the people instituting the rules. So there's that. You asked if the place was surreal. Yes, I live in two places, currently one, but my wife had a place in Venice. I watched Venice become, I'll bet some days festive, but become like beyond Thunderdome with the sprawling homelessness issues, the non-pavement of the streets, the lack of gentrification, which includes affordable housing, which has been going on for 40 years. The bottom line is a place that should be the Riviera of the West Coast is being kept in a situation where property values are plummeting, crime, sex trafficking, drug use openly, and I'm not talking about marijuana. All of that is going on there, and it's unacceptable. It's not being addressed. Quite the contrary, people are making a lot of money off of sustaining it and seeing it perpetrate. So we've identified for the homelessness population 5 different components. And there's overlap. One is veteran component. That's not being addressed. 2, a drug addiction component, not being addressed. Mental challenges component, not being addressed. Sex trafficking component, not being addressed. And able-bodied people who really just want to live on the dole, on the beach, and that's not being addressed. So how do you address that? You have to address it by the infrastructure to handle the veterans, the drug addiction, the mentally challenged, and those people who fall on hard times and just end up homeless. So you have to have something that services those people, and you have to have something that services the able-bodied people that just are happy to sit down there and be supported by the rest of the community and are essentially vagrants. So in order to have that be solved, you need to have an infrastructure that can receive all those components, and you need law enforcement as a component to address people who will not allow themselves to be sent to facilities to address their issues. They cannot live on the streets. It cannot be allowed, and it has to be. And by the way, the Supreme Court has, to some extent, said they have the right to live on the beach. So you have to address that component as well. So I'm doing things like looking to everything I can. Can the National Guard be deployed to not to round up people, not to be bulldozering people, but to get them into the facilities that they actually need to be sent to in order to have their particular situation addressed. The able-bodied, why don't we have, along the lines of FDR, a workforce, a large creative workforce that's statewide, that addresses beautification, that addresses local community elevation, open space, school elevation. So one of the parts of our platform is the address, and it's a very democratic component to address a community-based, large-scale, statewide workforce to address some of these issues. So it's nonpartisan. It's completely apolitical. It's about being authentic and getting some things done. And the things aren't getting done here. All the film productions have largely have left California for other environments, other states, other countries. We want to bring all that stuff back by the immediate institution of a 25% cash rebate for vetted projects. We want to cause the housing prices to find a mean level so that people actually can live here who work in those industries and have a good quality of life. So that means fostering affordable housing construction that is not instantly turning into slums because they're mismanaged. So you can develop an arena like the Venice area, and at the same time, very easily build in affordable housing in the structure of your development, your hotel, whatever, so that the people who live and work there can live there and service that particular facility. It's just built into the equation, but it's not being exercised. In my opinion, it's being stopped by a group of community activists that are not working with the community to see things become better for all.
So you mentioned civil disobedience a few minutes ago. Our sources are telling us that they're going to lock down LA County again very, very soon. And in fact, this week they've announced that restaurants are going to be closing. And recently, Boris Johnson in the UK wanted to implement the vaccine passports that would prevent people from going to pubs and restaurants and nightclubs unless they had the proper vaccine passport. And when that happened, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in the UK. Now, that's not getting much media coverage here, but that's what's happened over there. If they lock down Los Angeles or other substantial parts of California again, two questions. How long do you think that can last before there's a complete economic meltdown? And secondly, do you think people will take to the streets and begin protesting?
I think it's already, people are over it, John. They're over it. They want solutions that allow the economy to thrive. Look, let's take the film business, for example. We can institute compliance that keeps everybody safe and solutions, and it adds maybe 10% to your budget. We don't have to shut down film production in order for this to happen. The lockdowns are a complete failure. They don't function. The numbers don't show that they do anything. What we need to do is isolate the at-risk populations, put our focus on that, and also with an accentuation of citizen responsibility. We're created as Americans, and we can actually make responsible decisions as we go down. People are not going to accept this vaccine passport. Some will, but there are many who are not. And the bottom line is, because there's emerging data every day that the vaccine is potentially detrimental to a lot of people. So I support people in whatever they want to do. Our campaign is about elevating people and having empathy for everybody's point of view.
I mentioned earlier that the motion picture studios are now making their way to New Mexico. And of course, all over the news today, they're talking about Netflix moving more of its resources out there. And
Universal, all of it, yeah, in partnership with a government that's making it happen.
Yeah. Why do you think California is so reluctant to make industry, to make the studios, to let them continue to thrive here? What do you think the end game is here? Why are they driving everybody out? Is it just their greed?
I think there's a combination of circumstances. Let's just take the film business. The film business fleeing the state has been occurring for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And it's been occurring because, for a variety of reasons, the high cost, not just the lack of incentive program, the lack of a competitive incentive program. There's arrogance involved. This is Hollywood. This is the center of the entertainment. We don't have to do anything to be competitive. There's that operating. There's the high cost of taxation here. There's the high cost of housing here. There's the fact that the unions are actually, and I'm a member of a union, the union talent here is expensive. Okay, so it's that confluence of things that causes people to go elsewhere. So what does California need to do? California needs to be competitive. Now, let's take my union, the Screen Actors Guild. Not perfect, but generally the Screen Actors Guild works with productions, no matter what their economic size, to see that they can be covered by the guild. So there's a bunch of paperwork to fill out, but they actually generally make that union production relationship work. Okay. Unions in this state need to function that way too, much like the unions function in Vancouver. Going back to Vancouver, Vancouver has a Teamster union that's really unique. They have and I'm not updated yesterday on it, but when I have worked many times in Canada, in Vancouver, the Teamsters Union has a very special contract. I'm surprised that the International Brotherhood of Teamsters allows them to have that. But when a project goes to Vancouver, everybody in the Teamsters functions to get the production done as if it's a family operation. They don't stand there and be idle because they're a member of a union, but they function as a community to get the job done with the support of the Canadian government. And these things are constantly in evolution, but they operate as a family, united, we are one. That's what our campaign is about. United, we are one. That takes responsible citizenship. That takes government that's really wise. That takes a financial structure that wants to finance here. To answer your question, I think there's a tremendous number of things that are operating here. There's a lack of desire to take ideas from both sides. This is about people uniting to get the job done. Just this morning, we have 4 or 5 deals coming into California, some from other countries, some from other parts of California, to shoot in California because they trust me, because I'm authentic with them, because I treat them as a friend with integrity, because that's what we're doing. And we all want to see this enterprise succeed. It's about listening and making it happen. I think what's operating here in California is lack of vision, mismanagement, arrogance, the maintenance of a power structure which wants to maintain itself much more so than it actually wants to serve the people. The government here is not delivering the goods at the level that California deserves. So that's why we urgently got into this race, which is very challenging and very truncated, but that puts the focus very swiftly. It's very much like film production. It's very much like running any operation. It has to be done frugally and brilliantly, and it has to come from the heart and soul of the people. And that's where this is coming from. So,
speaking of the film industry, let me give you an analogy. When the government passed NAFTA years ago, they basically took many of the automotive factories out of Detroit and sent them to Mexico.
Sure.
Because of that, Detroit looks like a ghost town now. Still does to this day. I think that the government of California does not realize how important the film industry is. And if they don't do more to hang on to it, you're going to have the same phenomena in Southern California. These studios will leave, and Southern California without the film industry is not the California anybody will have any interest in. So many millions of people go there just because of that. And I think it would be a travesty if they lost it. So,
you're right and you're insightful, but think what the fallout of that is, losing all of that. That means members of particular communities can't afford to send their kids to a school of their choice or can't afford community college because all of those jobs have gone away. All of those, I'm not talking about the lead actors. I've been a lead actor. So I'd go to New Zealand or Australia or New Mexico or Georgia or the UK. I've been to all of those places as a lead actor. We're talking about the set designers, the grips, the electric people, the carpenters, all those great jobs. And the same methodology should be applied to a pro-business climate here, which is not occurring either. Everything is leaving. As Elon Musk said, California doesn't get it. Well, we get it, and we want to arrest that fall. The plain fact is we want to be competitive, and we want to do the quality work that we deliver in every 7 or 8 careers already.
I think the people get it. I just don't think the politicians care. I think they have an alternate agenda that they're not disclosing because this all seems too deliberate. Nobody can be this blind or incompetent for this long. There's something going on.
I agree with you, and I will get to the bottom of it. But the bottom line is, what do we have as a choice as a free people and as people who believe in excellence? Can't take it with you, John. You might as well do whatever the hell you can while you're here. So that's how I've carried myself through journalism, advertising, writing, playwriting, assistant directing on Broadway, off Broadway, the West End of London, 200 films and hit TV shows, working with Spielberg and James Cameron and Antoine Fuqua and Naomi Watts and everybody else. The truth is, we always deliver the goods, and it's not easy. It's challenging, but this isn't a fat cat operation. This is get the job done, and that's our legacy. That's exactly what we carry with us into the next life.
So I've heard that 40% of the population of San Francisco is planning to move out of the city imminently because of crime and taxes. That's basically half the city. They're on their way out. And a lot of stores throughout the state have been overrun with shoplifters, and they literally can't keep stuff on the shelves. And I'm sure if you go on YouTube or you watch the news for 5 minutes, you'll see what's going on. It's almost comedic the way, the shoplifters carry hundreds and hundreds of items out the front door, and management and employees can't really do anything because they've been ordered to stand down. Let's pretend for just a second that we'll fast forward 2 months into a lockdown. Let's pretend they go into a lockdown in August, shut everything down. What do you think happens to California over the next 90 days once we're in a lockdown? Do you think that any of that is sustainable, survivable? Do you think we'll even recognize it, or are we talking total mayhem?
I think there are going to be people that are going to go in all of those directions. Where I would go is this is an opportunity. How do we make this work for everybody? And we're already doing that. So we're going to be doing COVID compliant. Look, I'm a big proponent in following the law. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, which is I have been for a long time because they put so many guns in my hands as an actor. So I began to train and do it as a sport, or golf, if you will. And so I do know that everybody is armed to the teeth here now. And we're on the brink. And if we don't move forward, then things can happen. You talked about the rise in crime. Everywhere I go to the Walgreens drug, and the security guys there beg me to run. They literally implore me to run because they're having knives pulled on them. They're having guns pulled on them. And why? Because law enforcement has been hamstrung and demoralized by this situation. That's not to diminish in any way the quest for equal protection under the law and equal application of the law to all segments of society. But we've come through that. What about a subsidy for everybody who got their business burned out by the riots that were here? No attention to those people at all. So I stand with anybody who's facing an institutional racist situation or an unjust situation, no matter who you are. But I also stand with the shop owners and the corporations that saw their businesses gutted and burned out here. So once again, it doesn't have to be either or. What do I think is going to happen? I think that the people of California are going to rise to the occasion, and we are going to make this place exactly what it should be, which is prosperous and beautiful at the same time. It's from the bottom up.
Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that you win the office. You're the next governor, and you're then confronted with the typical choice: do I purge all these people who claim to have all this experience, but who are basically responsible for the position we're now in? Or do I bring in people who are slightly less experienced and give them a shot? What does your gut tell you to do?
You ask a really great question, because it's much like staffing a political campaign, or it's much like staffing a film of technical people. I always look for people who have a history of something, but sometimes you take people who are just starting out because they have great energy and panache, but then they're starting out at a lower economic level than somebody who's polished and has delivered the goods. So my first instinct would be to say, not to lay waste, but to say, look, we're going to have to work together. This is what we need to accomplish. How do we get this done? What are your interests? What's at stake with you? What's going on? If what's at stake is your self-serving of yourself and not serving the people of California, then you're going to need to clear out really fast.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to extend an olive branch and say, look, let's make this happen. I want, in a short period of time, I want us to have this situation solved to the consensus, not just solved, but with consensual, with peripheral benefits for all people. I have no desire to lay waste to the homeless population. I have a desire to see the state of California elevated and all of its people elevated. So, and you're going to have to participate in that as a citizen, as a law enforcement personnel, as a community activist, as a political candidate across the board.
Patrick, you decided to run for governor. What decision, what moment, what experience caused you to make that decision?
Well, John, I'm going to say I had been thinking about it for a long time because I was living in LA and I was thinking of running for the mayor of LA, city of Los Angeles. So this thought process has been going on for a while because, as I've described, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff go on here in LA that should not be going on. It's just malpractice of government. It's lack of vision. Not across the board. There are community activists that are effective. There are governmental people that are effective. There are law enforcement people that are effective. There's people across the board who really want the place to be a really good place, and it's not as good as it should be. Our schools should be the finest in the nation. They are not. They're far from that. We should be an exponent center for eco-technology. We are not. We need to lead the way, and we are not. In fact, as you so rightly point, we're headed into free fall in a lot of areas. So challenging job, but if you're not up to it, let somebody who is in there across the board. My first instinct, to answer your question, is to work with people and to listen to them. If you're a criminal, if you're putting your interests ahead of the people of California, then you don't belong in public service. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Monroe and all those people did not put their personal fortunes at risk and their life and liberty at risk in order to create this country. Flawed though it may be if you were an African American. But I'm also acutely aware that the first American to die in the American Revolution in Massachusetts was an African American. So the glass is not half empty, it's half full. 20,000 American boys died at Gettysburg to end the issue of slavery here. That's an ongoing journey, and so we're addressing that as we go forward. Most people don't even care about this. They care about things being good for everybody. And it can be if people operate from lack of selfishness and lack of greed. So it's not about holding on to power either. We have a great tradition in this country of relinquishing power. George Washington went away from Washington after 2 terms. That's what this is about. It's called public service. You're there to offer yourself urgently for public service. We have a great city here and a great state. It needs to be stewarded properly. So I apologize for being long-winded.
That's all right. Patrick, you have a reputation.
I'm so sorry that you accepted that apology.
I'll cut that out. Don't worry.
No, don't. Let's keep it real. So I need to be more concise in my answers.
All right.
But there are a lot of dimensions to some of the things you're so insightfully bringing up.
So, Patrick, you have a long-standing reputation for being honest, for having integrity. But historically speaking, honest men do not do well in politics. Politics seems to be dominated by treachery, by criminal intent, by deception. And some people think that being honest is going to make it difficult for the campaign. You're going to be inundated with lies and fraud and treachery and bureaucratic delays on all sorts of people trying to hamstring you. How are you going to navigate through that? Because, there's a reason the people in power are in power, and the people who are trying to ascend to power, the good people, the honest people, the people who have the public's interest at heart, why they have to struggle to ascend to power. That's a very difficult road to navigate.
Here's what I want to say. My experience of the film business and business in general is the moment you relinquish your integrity and your honesty, you're actually doomed to failure. I'll give you an example. I once opened a film fund in London with some partners, and it became apparent that after some period of time, by the way, I think the universe takes care of good people. It gives them the intelligence they need to defeat, call them forces of darkness, if you will, greed and selfishness. So I think the universe takes care of that. We operate from strength here at Uncommon Dialogue Films. We guard ourselves significantly and in advanced technologies and all of everything that we can possibly do. I think we're very savvy about doing business. At the same time, at our core, there's an integrity and a desire to serve others. At the same time, we're not naive fools. We know that that's why the law, that's why contracts were invented, that's why technologies that safeguard your intellectual property existed. So I think it's that combination of authenticity and integrity that's mingled with lack of naivete about the world that can make you an effective leader. I don't think Eisenhower or Teddy Roosevelt or some of the Lincoln or the great people that I admire, um, even Ulysses S. Grant and a lot of other great people from many, many cultures, Winston Churchill. I think Winston Churchill is as great as he was. They did some pretty crazy chicanery stuff that wasn't in the best interest of a lot of people, but I still admire him on a lot of levels. The truth is, I think we go forward with an open heart and play the big game and do it with as much skill as we know how. And I think the universe will take care of us. The bottom line is, and good people will take care of us. And let John, I don't know why people spend their lives doing what they do. I don't know why people would spend their creative life and their whatever making some of the movies they do. But I don't spend my time thinking about that. I try to commune with the masters that I admire and go forth and take the artistic flag further. So the same thing is true of public service. You try to go forward in the best way you know how, without naivete, with realism about the world, and know that you're trying to plant the flag a little higher than it was before. Isn't that what we do as parents? Isn't that what we do as Americans?
Yeah, I think people will pay more attention to what you do in the first few months than what you say. And
Sure.
if your actions demonstrate your intent, then nothing else is going to matter. And I think that's why the current administration is suffering so badly now and being recalled, because people watch what they say and then they watch what they do, and it's clear what's going on. Nobody's being fooled in the internet age. And I
Sure.
think the same thing with you. I think, if your actions in the first few weeks demonstrate some very innovative solutions, then I think that'll speak, that will be more important than anything you could say in the first 30 days. I think that'll be so impactful.
I understand that. The same is true of when you go in for a film job. From the moment you're there, you're delivering the goods because your preparation is skillfully done and you've been doing it for a while. The same is true of screenwriting. The same is true of film finance. The same is true of, look, we just started the campaign about 2.5 days ago. We just got the paperwork and we got on the ballot with a significant effort and significant economic outlay. Now we're organizing the campaign and it's all coming to place. As I said, we've organized 4 or 5 film productions just to come back to California and to work with entities outside of California just this morning. So we're really, really rolling. And that's not hyperbole. That's what's happened. And that's a centerpiece to our campaign. At the same time, we're listening a lot to everybody about everything. I started your show by writing an adjustment to our candidate statement and the press release about what's going on. Our intent is good. What I find people coming forward to me, they go, I really like you, Patrick, and you have a great reputation for delivering the goods. And that's what we intend to do at every level, whether it's an email or all the way up to the relationship of California with foreign countries. We're going to do the right thing. And we're going to do it with skill and awareness of the real world. And by the way, it comes to communication too. You have to communicate to the people that you're governing with, that you're serving. So it's all about communicating with those people.
Yes. I think when you speak, you communicate with credibility, with honesty, with integrity. And I think that's immediately apparent. And of course, you also have an international reputation, for the movies that you've done. So I think that's something you're going to be able to leverage on a tremendous level. So I think you have all that going. Does anybody really think that the current governor has any hope at all of staying in office?
I don't think. You know what they say, John? Show up, listen, add value, be attentive, which is the same thing as listening. Don't be attached to the outcome. So There you go. I don't speculate about things. I just do the very, very best job I can do as we go down the line. Look, they just pulled a good move because they got a bailout from the federal government, and they say they're going to spread it out. And that's great. I'm happy for the state. The question becomes, why didn't you do it earlier? It's only because those people who are in power, God love them, I wish them well, the rest of America decided to bail California out.
Tell us about the logistics of running a campaign for governor in California. How much of your time are you going to be spending on fundraising? How much of your time are you going to spend doing media? Just some general background.
Well, I'll start with the beginnings. The beginnings of you find out what's involved in filing, and I have a wonderful team. Maria is a wizard with me, and she just went through that filing material with me like a whiz. Then you have the signature component, and you have the economic component. You have to write a check. My only issue with the system, and I think that needs to be looked at, is the disallowal of signatures is not transparent. We photographed everything that went in, and they disallowed 50% of our signatures, the first batch out. Don't tell you why. They don't tell you the reasons. They're really fun people at the front desk, and really nice people, people who have worked for 40 years for the city registrar and secretary of state, great people. But that disallowing of signatures, in my opinion, needs to be transparent and needs to have an independent examination, separate and apart, so that no political chicanery can take place. But we overcame that by putting in 5 times the number of signatures that were required in the second round. So we got on the ballot. And you asked about the structure of the campaign. Look, I've planned major events before. I've done large-scale productions that involve celebrities and international press. So we're right now structuring our launch PR campaign and our launch press conference and that event. And what is the purpose of our campaign? To bring glamour and Hollywood and production, reality, not just the fluff, back to California. So that event will be reflective of that. We're a film company, so the images that go out for me and those kind of things have to be the highest representation of communication. It's not about cult of personality. It's about what we are presenting as our platform and who's representing it. This is a team play here. It always has been and always will be, just like movies are. The structure is we move so quickly that often we don't even think about the structure. If you do an email that's excellently, and the next thing you do is excellent, John, and the next thing you do is excellent. I think it's the Japanese. They say, if you can make a cup of tea excellently, you can do anything. Well, we make our cup of tea excellently, and then we move on. And we do it with some joy, because it's not a good thing to abdicate joy and humanness for the attainment of a particular goal. Sometimes you have to do that. I've gone through work situations where you have to sacrifice your health, but that's a choice that you make. But largely we try to do it as a joyous experience, and that's what's happening. So the structure is we have to staff up, and we have, but we had a great core team to begin with at Uncommon Dialogue Films. We have to expand out. And guess what? People are so urgently in need of some leadership and somebody to affect this change that they're stepping forward in droves. People do not want things to remain the same in California. They don't want the free fall to continue. So it's happening daily. And I'm not just talking. I'm going to return to the fact that we made 4 or 5 film deals from international venues and within California this morning to announce the completion of those deals at our press conference. So we're already fulfilling one of our key campaign contributions, which is to bring more production back to California.
Are you going to appear on camera in any of those films?
Me personally?
Yes.
Well, that's not my first instinct when I'm thinking about it as a producer, but in a situation where it clearly elevates the project, just like casting anybody, sure, I can step into that. But that's not what it's about. You're telling the story, irrespective of propaganda, irrespective of whatever you're trying to do, and you want it to be globally significant. So I have a couple of projects that in the end, I stepped in for something, but that's not the drive. And I think we have one project that one of the studios has committed to financing, and I'm directing and I'm playing one of the ensemble leads. But it's a manageable budget. It's fairly heroic. It has to be heroic. But I would never forcefully insert myself into a project. I become the producer's hat there, and there's somebody else that can do a better job, I'm happy to do it. If it's somebody that's equivalent, why should I step aside?
Speaking of the entertainment industry, William Morris Endeavor announced they're closing their offices in Los Angeles, on a temporary basis, but who knows what the truth is. And of course, some studios are migrating out of the state entirely. Do you think tax incentives alone will be enough to keep people here, or will it require something more innovative?
No, I don't. But I think overnight that's going to make things more competitive. As I said, there's going to take some coalescing of interests here from the unions and things like that that are going to take some charismatic producing. That's what I call it. And really, look, we do projects at 25 million, 30 million that the studios would spend 300 million on. So it'd be nice to do a $300 million project, but that isn't what we're all about. We're about budgets that are appropriate and at the same time elevate the originality and the visual tapestry of the film. There's also a corporate entity involved in all of that too, because how do you integrate their presence to bring your production value, your production budget down and your publicity budget up? I mean, that's not even new. That's what happens. If you look at a movie I did called Minority Report with Steven Spielberg, a goodly portion of that budget, perhaps publicity, was paid for by Gap and Guinness Beer and Lexus, because Steven Spielberg, being a great visionary filmmaker, they integrated all of that into the world of the future. So there's a lot of things that go into the moving parts of a production. There's a lot. California is a production.
Will there be any televised debates before this election?
I don't know. We're monitoring that. We've had a couple of requests to participate in things, and obviously we'll take advantage of that. And it's I'll go where the good Lord in the universe sends me to serve the people of California, and we're not shying away from anything. In fact, we're interested in the circus and arena of ideas. So why would we shy away from any kind of conversation with anybody who's running?
Now, for people who are not familiar with California politics and the laws out there, tell us about the timeline. When will this all be decided? How long will your campaign be? Does it all end on September 14th, or does something go on beyond that?
Well, that's a very, very good question. I was thinking about this morning. First of all, I never think about that, but I think we should leave that to we are already thinking about what happens after September 14th. Whether it's, life doesn't end on September 14th. Life continues and is enthralling and joyful enterprise way beyond September 14th. So we'll either be at the behoove of the people of California, be doing the job, or we'll be doing the job globally and significantly for California and the world of film continuing. There's other political situations. The LA mayor's race is still there too.
Oh, so, no, I don't mean that. What I mean is, does this recall decide who's going to be governor, or is it like a primary where they then have?
No, whoever wins that election gets the most votes is the governor of California.
Gotcha.
For the remainder of this term, it's a truncated term.
And how long is the term?
So, over a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good question, Maria. What's the exact length of the term? I know it's about a year and a half. Can you?
I know you mentioned wanting to reduce the rates for water for organic farmers. Are there any other serious plans that you want to put in place quickly, serious policies that you want to enact quickly, or do you think that a lot of this is just going to take months to unwind and develop properly?
I'm going to have to get more familiar, and I'm being honest about that, with the mechanisms of power at the government level, governor's level. We're already thinking about all of those. But again, my first situation would be to extend to the legislature. I'm here to work with you to effect change that's positive for all California. That would be my first situation. And then go from there. Some of the things, again, and I'm being honest about it, we have to see what mechanisms are available to the governorship of California in order to affect these things really, really swiftly. It's not a dictatorship. We don't live in a dictatorship. We live in a representative republic. So competitive interests have always been part of the equation since the beginning of America and going back to the dawn of man's time on Earth. So you're going to have to work together with people, with the mandate of the people, and affect as much change as you possibly can. And
Los Angeles, I believe, just voted in a new attorney general. Was it a year or two ago? Or who's refusing to prosecute felons left and right?
Yeah, it's absolutely reprehensible. Now, that said, we need to look at the incarceration issue. And I would say that if it's a nonviolent crime, you should not be serving time in a jail.
All right, Patrick. Well, listen, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you would like to mention or bring to light?
Well, I'll do some craven self-production. I have a movie coming out called Catalyst, a young director that I really like named Chris Fulkins. Volume 2 of my memoir, Dying for Living, will be coming out. I was happily polishing that, and then we got hired to write and produce a major Asian-themed project, which allows us to talk about the entire Asia region and the relationship with America. And so that's currently with the major streaming services. What else is coming out? Keep posted for the gubernatorial things. I'm the proud father of 2 lovely sons, and they're doing well, and they have no student debt. And we hope to foster a situation that'll help people in California attain the same goals.
Well, Patrick, I want to wish you the best of luck. They say fortune favors the bold, but I think in this situation, fortune may also favor the honest. So thank you for coming on the John Ark Show, and you are always welcome back, sir.
Thank you, John. I've never had trouble being honest. I've always found great benefits in it. So onward and upward. I'll see you soon, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.